Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Keeping It Together. Thank you for joining us for this episode. My name is Bridget White, and I am a co-host of this podcast, and I am here with our new guest, Julia Blackwell. Today's episode will be on yoga. Our guest, Julia Blackwell, is an urban Cree woman of the Papikasis First Nation with mixed European ancestry. Originally from Calgary, Alberta, Julia now lives on the Coast Salish lands of the Greater Vancouver area. Julia wears a few different professional hats. She is a registered clinical counselor, a yoga teacher, and an Ayurvedic nutritionist. I hope I said that right. Julia is passionate about mind and body health as well as wellness, and she is also a wife and a mom of a 3-year-old. Hi, Julia. How's it going today?
Hi, Bridget. Doing well. Great to meet you here on the podcast.
Good to meet you too. So, Julia, can you tell us a little bit about your background with yoga?
So, thank you. Yes, I started practicing yoga back when I was in high school, just to kind of really complement my passion for running as well. Then I got to know as I practiced it, I found a bit more about the history and the culture and background of everything about yoga and mindfulness. And I just was really drawn to learn more. So I took my 200-hour level back actually at the beginning of the COVID pandemic online. So that's really helped to deepen my understanding and appreciation for it.
Absolutely. So we know that COVID-19 was a difficult time for everyone, I'm sure. I know personally I started to get into yoga and meditation because I wasn't really sure. Like, I had done all this research and everything told me those are great things to do to help with your not only physical health, but mental health as well. So could you share with us a little bit about how yoga and mindfulness helped you to keep it together during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you. That's a great question. So it's really helped me to really slow down and to just really de-stress, especially, of course, with the COVID pandemic, but also having, a toddler as well. Definitely a lot of stress that both of those things were really holding for me. So it definitely helped me to just really be really present, not to worry so much about, the future, what things are going to unfold, not to worry too much about, other things that were going on with stress and of being, a mom, and also trying to live with, all the confines of not being able to go out as much as possible to really go inward.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I know that we have talked about mindfulness a lot on this podcast. I've brought it up a couple of times. I think it's important to find something that you're passionate about that gets your mind in a different zone. So you're not just constantly focused on what's going on around you. And I know that yoga for me and learning about mindfulness helped me to understand that you really do need to take a step out of your own brain for a little bit, not let those anxious thoughts. I know that people's anxiety and mental health severely deteriorated over the pandemic, and it's so important to have the skills to be able to step out of that mindset and focus on one thing right in front of you. We talked to one woman who she got really into beading over the pandemic, and she used it as a way of getting in touch with, mindfulness, because she said she would just be focusing on that task, getting the beading done. And I think anything, but especially yoga, can really do that, because I just recently was doing a yoga class a couple weeks ago, and you really are only thinking about your movement, your breath, and I think it's so important to have that skill. I know that you are a counselor. Is that right? A clinical counselor? Are there ways that you integrate yoga and mindfulness practices into your clinical services?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, it's quite a go-to that I use. I also have some training in mindfulness-based somatic therapy. So that's basically really integrating a lot of like the restorative yoga postures and the breath work together with being able to create a bit of more calmness and kind of safety first before delving into some of these really, tough topics. As well, I often, beyond that as well, just being able to bring in like the breathing or some gentle stretching in the chair with clients during sessions if I notice that they're getting a bit overwhelmed, to help them come back to the present.
Yeah, come back to the present. That's what I was trying to get at before when I was explaining it. Get it in the present. Do you have any thoughts on how yoga and mindfulness may align with Indigenous values or perspectives? I know that it does not come from Indigenous Canadian cultures, but can you tell us a little bit about where it does come from and how those ideas might align with Indigenous values?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely the roots of yoga, of course, originate from from India and the culture there. And when I was first getting to know more about yoga, as well, I just really found that appreciation about respecting where yoga does come from has been really helpful for me to deepen my practice and my respect for, the whole practice as well. And it also helped definitely really integrating that presence with the Indigenous, ways of knowing it, culture as well, through sometimes maybe, some smudging, for example, at the beginning of practicing a yoga session, especially if I was having like a lot of stress that day, helped me to be really calm, definitely, for sure.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey to becoming a yoga teacher? I know you said you started in high school, but what was your training like and how has it become a part of your life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so especially throughout university as well, I found it as like a huge yoga as a way to really de-stress as well. So being able to really distance it, not so much like the physical stretching aspect of yoga, but knowing how helpful it could be, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and everything like that. So that really developed over time throughout university. And then I always wanted to get my yoga training, but then I was able to do it online through with COVID. Everything was becoming more online, so I was able to do that during those years, and then it really helped me to understand like the social justice aspect of it, the whole finding like your purpose, and like all these different things I was learning in my yoga training was really quite impactful for me. So at the moment, I actually just recently started teaching yoga it's called energy corporate yoga. To be able to go on people's like workplaces or to help people privately, like at their homes or virtually, is how I teach people yoga.
Oh, online.
Yeah.
So you can do it
Yeah.
over Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So if people are interested from other places besides BC and where you live, they're able to join your yoga classes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really great to have that. Definitely one benefit of COVID I found is it kind of helped connect people in a new way, especially through like online a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe if people are listening to this and they feel that they are interested in joining your yoga class, then this would be a great place to start. Do you do beginners, intermediate? Is there different levels that people need to be aware of, or how does it work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I usually start with like a consultation, so I can, customize the yoga class, especially if it's one-on-one or a group, to suit like their needs and their goals. And so it's not really limited to any level because I'll be able to approach the person
Okay.
first. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I
Yeah.
totally understand. Now, this is a
Mm-hmm.
question that I think is really important to ask because we have had a couple of different conversations. I don't know if they've been in the past podcast episodes, but me and my co hosts have had conversations about what exactly mindfulness is. And I'm not going to name who my co host is, but one of my co hosts thinks that it is an overused term. So, could you help enlighten us about what mindfulness actually means? I've tried to explain it to them, and it doesn't really, I don't have the same impact as a yoga teacher would.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's definitely especially in the last probably like 5-10 years, it's definitely become like mindfulness as being definitely like a buzzword that really gets thrown around quite a lot. So I can definitely relate or understand where
Yes,
your co-host is coming from. Yeah,
yes, that's
and yeah,
exactly what he says.
yeah, and yeah, I've done quite a little bit of like research as well into like mindfulness and like what it is as well, and also just in the more applying it as well in my life too. Is really comes down to that kind of non-judgmental present moment like awareness about what's going on, both like in the body but also like in the thoughts as well. So it's really coming to the present moment without any judgment about what it is, just seeing what's going on in the moment.
I watched this series on Netflix about mindfulness. I don't know if you have seen it, but was quite it was filled with information about it. And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding or the thing that I picked up on was that it was kind of like you are distancing yourself from your thoughts rather than allowing your thoughts or your feelings to take over your body in the moment. You kind of take a step back and, like you said, look at it from a non-judgmental perspective, as in these are just thoughts, these are just feelings. It's not completely, what's the word for it, it's not entirely reality. Everyone is experiencing their own thoughts and feelings in a different way, and it's important to take a step back and look at it from an outside perspective, a non-judgmental perspective. And it really does give you a lot. It teaches you a lot about the way that your mind works and the thoughts that you regularly have. Because if you are having a tough day and you're thinking to yourself, like, I know some people with lower self-esteem will have thoughts like, oh, I'm not good enough to, you know, do this exercise. I can't do this exercise. I have no idea where I was going with that. Oh, you can recognize those thoughts if you really sit back and look at your thoughts from an outside perspective and recognize the patterns of you continuously telling yourself, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm too bad at this, da 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 da. You can recognize a pattern by stepping out and taking a look at the thoughts that are going on in your brain and really discovering a lot about how you perceive the world. And because for a lot of people, those thoughts are just automatic, and there can be very negative thoughts that just come automatically and you feel like you have no control over them. But once you practice mindfulness, you can start to not necessarily have control over them, but like you said, come from a non-judgmental perspective. Does that resonate at all, or did I
Yeah,
just
yeah, that's great. Yeah, definitely being able to. I like that metaphor, like kind of like looking at like a driver seated away. So instead of like having like the emotion or like those patterns that you might be sharing about as well, like how being able to take a step back and to see like, okay, just kind of driving, as I kind of stick with that metaphor, like kind of driving and seeing like those things kind of just passing by, noticing what's happening, so that you're able to better maybe not be thrown off balance as easily as well, being able to just to be able to catching those things as they happen, and over time it becomes really a really helpful skill to be able to create some strength and also gentleness, be able to kind of navigate everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit more about how people can get in touch with you if they do want to take your class. Is there an email, a phone number, or a social media handle to get in touch with you at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am on Facebook and Instagram at Press Pause Counseling is how you can access me through that in those ways. I also have email Julia B at energycorporateyoga.com. And also on my website, which is just presspausecounseling.com.
So, Julia, I'm wondering, because you're doing all of these things online, you're doing your yoga and counseling virtually. I'm wondering, since the pandemic, what are the benefits to having it virtual, and what are the challenges that you've experienced by having these things virtual?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely a great question. Yes, but in both practices with yoga and the counseling, definitely the COVID pandemic is still lingering on as well in different ways. I find like one great benefit of having things virtual is it helps kind of help connect or help people to feel a little bit more connected as well, being able to, if they're feeling like they're anxious again to go out, or if there's any, sometimes people are worried a bit about like, germs and or other kind of things coming up in the mental health as well. So being able to have a way to connect with someone without having to also worry with that fear of like going out. So it helps kind of bridge that slow bit of a transition back to kind of a society in a way. And I find it's also great for people that are maybe have returned back to like to work or the other things that they're doing, so that they're maybe becoming a lot busier as well. So that it's a great flexible way for people to fit yoga or counseling in to their increasingly busy schedules too.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you
Yeah.
found any challenges with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, because I was just finishing up my registration and everything during the whole uh, pandemic. So I actually started working actually in person before I started my own private practice virtually and in person. So like with the whole wearing masks and everything was quite
Right.
heavy in the beginning stage. So that was a bit difficult at times with people,
Yeah, I
be
would
able to
assume that.
communicate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as a counselor, I would assume you would need to kind of see their facial expressions to get a sense of how they're really
Yeah.
feeling, and sometimes it's harder to do that with a mask on. So I can definitely see how that would have been a challenge. But yeah, no, doing it over. I haven't had a counseling appointment because I've personally been to counseling before and I've never done it virtually. But I think that it would be, it would definitely be beneficial for, like you were saying, people with those increasingly busy schedules who want to quickly, have a moment to unload a little bit or practice a yoga routine or yoga practice, I guess you would call it. I will definitely put your information somewhere around here, and then people can contact you for either counseling or yoga or both, because I think both go hand in hand very well together.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Definitely.
so thank you so much, Julia, for joining us to talk about yoga. And like I said, if anybody wants to connect with us further about this topic, feel free to reach out to us on social media, or we'll, like I said, link all of Julia's information as well if you want to get in contact with her directly. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Julia.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. It's great to join you.